Hi, my name is Andres Gonzalez and this is assignment 3 for mechatronics.
So for assignment 3 of mechatronics, we have part 1 and part 2. On part 1, I have to create a circuit that turns on and off a LED with a press of a button and adjust the brightness with a potentiometer. When the brightness is at the maximum, it has to display I love mechatronics, and when the brightness is at the minimum, it has to display I love mechatronics even in the dark. Now for part 2, I have to set up a circuit with the following constraints. I have port A, B, C, and D. For A, I have bottom 1, it has to turn a red LED on and off. For bottom 2, it has to turn a blue and green LED on and off, opposite to one another. So it has different options right here. It has to be blue on and green off, then blue off and green on, and then blue off and green off. So both of them off right here. Then I have bottom 3, which basically turns all of the LEDs off, and D, which is gonna be my bottom 4, it has to change the brightness of all LEDs to the following levels, which is gonna be 25%, 50%, and 100%.
This is my code for part 1, assignment 3 on mechatronics. First, I define the pins that I connected my components to. LED to pin 5, bottom to pin 18, potentiometer to pin 4. Then I have my variables right here. LED state, it's gonna track whether the LED is on or off, which is gonna be either true or false. The last bottom state stores the last state of the bottom for detecting state changes. So whenever I click or not, the last debounce time, it records the time when the bottom state last changed it to implement a debounce. And then the debounce delay basically just avoid false triggers. I start my setup function right here. I initialize the LED pin as an output. Then the pin bottom with the input pull-up basically enables the internal pull-up resistor, so the bottom reads high by default. This way I don't have to use an external resistor attached to the bottom of my circuit. I start my serial communication at 115/200, which is just a standard serial communication. And I'm gonna do the setup right here. I'll do the setup for the pulse width modulation. Basically the pin LED is attached to channel 0 right here. Frequency of 5000 Hertz and a resolution of 8 bits. It is basically gonna allow me 256 levels of brightness whenever I'm turning the potentiometer. Then I have my loop function. It reads the current state of the bottom, and the bottom is high when it's not being pressed and low when it's pressed. This is my debounce logic. This basically allows me to turn on or off the LED whenever I'm clicking the bottom. It also updates the last bottom state for the next loop iteration. And this right here basically read the analog value from the potentiometer, that it goes from 0 to 4095. So I'm gonna just map the potentiometer value from 0 to 255 so it match the pulse width modulation. And this right here basically allows me to change the brightness of the LED as I'm turning the potentiometer. So if I go from 0 to 255, that's gonna be the value right here, which is basically gonna go high or down on the brightness of the LED. And this right here basically just prints some comments on my serial monitor. If the brightness is at the maximum, which is gonna be 255, it's gonna print I love mechatronics. And if it's at 0, which is the minimum, it's gonna print I love mechatronics even in the dark. Then at the end I just add a little delay just for stability on the code. This is my circuit for part 1 on assignment 3. The blue cables are connecting my components to their respective pins on the board. LED connected to pin 5. Bottom's gonna be connected to pin 18 and the potentiometer to pin 4. The red cable is bringing voltage 3.3 volts to the potentiometer on the right leg, and then the black cables are just connected to the ground. I'm connecting a resistor, 220 ohms resistor from the LED. It's also in series with the ground right here. Then bottom connect to the ground, and the potentiometer connected to the ground as well. Now I just plugged my ESP32 to my laptop, and I upload the code to my ESP32. So let's see if it works. If I click bottom right here, it should turn on. If I click it again, it goes off. Let's keep it on, and it should change the brightness on the LED if I move the potentiometer, which it does. So I'm gonna just open my serial monitor window. So if I go all the way up to the maximum, it should display I love mechatronics. And if I go to the minimum, it should display I love mechatronics even in the dark. This is my code for part 2 assignment 3 of mechatronics. First, I'll define to what pins I connected my components to. Basically, I have 3 LEDs: red LED, blue LED, and green LED connected to pins 4, 5, and 6. Then I have bottom 1, 2, 3, and 4 connected to pin 15, 16, 17, and 18. Then I state my variables right here. My red LED state is going to start false, which is going to be off. Then my blue-green state is going to start at stage 0, which is basically both of them off. And then my brightness level is going to start at 255, which is 100% brightness. My pulse width modulation is going to go from 0 to 255. And here I start my setup function. My pin mode for all of them basically is going to initialize my LED pins as outputs, and here I initialize all of my buttons as input pull-up, so I can use the internal pull-up resistors in all of them. I'm gonna start my serial communication on a standard speed, which is 115/200 baud, just a standard serial communication. Set up my pulse width modulation. So basically, all of my LEDs, they're gonna be attached to different channels. Red LED's gonna be on channel 0, blue LED's gonna be on channel 1, green LED's gonna be on channel 2. All of them are gonna be on 5000 Hertz and 8 bits resolution, which is basically it's gonna allow me to go from 0 to 255 on my brightness. Then I start my loop function right here. This one right here is gonna be for bottom 1. Basically, if I click my bottom 1, if pin bottom 1 is equals to low, it means I'm clicking it. It's gonna have a small delay just to read the code, and it's gonna change the red LED state to the next state. So basically, the state, it can be either on or off, and it's just gonna wait until I release the bottom so we can run the code. Bottom 2, it basically changed the cycle between the blue and the green LED. On stage 0, both of them are off. Stage 1, blue is on, green is off. Stage 2, blue is off, and then green is on. So I have the code right here for that one. If I'm clicking the bottom 2, it's gonna have a small delay, and basically it's gonna change the blue-green state to the next state. Basically cycle through 0, 1, and 2. If it's at 2, it's just gonna go to 0 again, which is both of them off. Then bottom 3 is gonna turn all of my LEDs off. So if I'm clicking bottom 3, it's gonna have a small delay. My red LED state is gonna go to false, which is off, and then my blue-green state is gonna go to 0. So blue and green LED are gonna be off. And just wait until I release. Pushing the bottom. For bottom 4 right here is basically commanding my cycle brightness level. I'm gonna have 3 stages. I'm gonna have 100% brightness, 25% brightness, 50% brightness. So if I click the bottom 4,
If the brightness level is at the maximum, which is 255, it will go to 25%. Then if it's already at 25%, it will go to 50%. And if it's at 50%, it will go again to the maximum, which is the 100%. It would be 255 on the pulse width modulation. Basically here, I update my red LED brightness on channel 0, and here channel 1 and channel 2 for the blue-green state, channel 1 for the blue LED, channel 2 for the green LED. So basically, all this is allowing me to change the brightness on my LEDs at the same time. Here, I can see that I have channel 1 to brightness level, channel 2, 0. If the blue-green state is at 2, so basically the blue LED is off, the green LED is on, and both of LED are off. Basically, this is stage 3. So this is basically the end of my loop, and then I just have a small delay at the end. This is the setup of my circuit for part 2 assignment 3. These blue cables are basically connecting my LEDs to the board. Red LED to pin 4, blue LED to pin 5, and my green LED to pin 6. All of them are being connected through a resistor, and then the other part of the LED are connected to the ground for all of them. I have these cables right here, basically connecting all of my bottoms right here to the pins, bottom 1, 2, 3, and 4 from left to right, gonna be connected to pin 15, 16, 17, and 18 respectively. Those are connected to one leg of my bottoms, which is gonna be the left leg of each of them. Then the right leg is connected to the ground. And this is basically my setup for the circuit. So now I plugged my ESP32 to my laptop. Right now I just upload my code to the board. So we're gonna test if the circuit is working. So if I click bottom 1, it should turn my red LED on and off, which is working. Bottom 2, it should turn off my blue LED first, then the green one, and now both of them should be off. Perfect. So now for bottom 3, which is basically gonna turn all of them off, I'm gonna turn on my my red LED and my blue LED, and they're off now. Now I'm gonna test it with my green LED. Perfect. And now I'm gonna turn this on, and I'm gonna test bottom 4, which is basically gonna change the brightness. Right now they should be at 100%. Now they're at 25%. Now they're at 50%. Now 100%. I'm gonna test it one more time with my green LED. Perfect. So the code is working.